Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to American Council's UNISAN webinar series. My name is Makhsat Koshkarbayev. I work in American Council's office in Almaty, DC. Oh, sorry, in Almaty, Kazakhstan. Today's topic is great marketing and communications for successful internationalization. Let me introduce today's speaker. We are very pleased to have Katie Curiel today with us. A little bit of background on our speaker. Katie Curiel works to build the global capacity of higher education in Central Asia in her role as globalization advisor at Narkhos University in Almaty. Katie brings nearly 2 decades of experience with partners and students from over 120 countries and leading institutions around the world and in the US, such as Arizona State University, the Institute of International Education, and the Fulbright program, as well as partnerships with embassies, diplomats, and global leaders. Her main areas of expertise lie at the intercept of global development, international education, and business development, with a focus on globalization, environmental sustainability, technological advancement, and innovation in society. Her impacts have been achieved through key focus and projects on strategic rebranding, marketing, and communications to effectively advance institutions and increase sustainable partnerships. Katie holds a Master's of Science in Global Technology and Development and a Bachelor of Arts in Intercultural Human Communication with minors in Business and Spanish from Arizona State University in the United States. At present, we have everyone on mute. So if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat box. And later on, after the presentation, we'll have Q&A session. With that, I want to give the floor to Katie, sorry.
Thank you so much, Makhsat. Can everybody hear me okay? Let's do a quick check-in. If you want to type in the chat box, a quick hello or yes, you can hear me okay. That way I know during the presentation if there are any issues, feel free to type in the chat box to let us know, okay? All right, great. I see a few of you commenting. Thank you. So it's really my pleasure to meet you all and speak to you today. Again, I have a background in international education from the United States. I've worked in the field for almost 20 years since I was an undergraduate student myself in the US. I've worked with some of the largest institutions and biggest institutions in higher education and internationalization of higher education. So it's really my pleasure to talk about this very important topic today, which is critical for Central Asia. As you know, as people working in the field, and many of you as international officers yourselves, you know the opportunities that Central Asia has for internationalization. And it's really a great time to expand the field of higher education, which really will impact the entire region and the country's growth as we move into what we call the fourth industrial revolution and a phase of globalization, where everything now is connected with technology. We're moving into a new era of technological advancement and a new era of globalization, and a higher education is really at the center of that. So for Central Asia to remain competitive and even advance further in getting on the international map when it comes to higher education and global development and workforce development, it's really important for universities to internationalize. Today we have a variety of you in the audience. So we have, as I said, international officers, we have faculty members, we have different staff members as well. And you all come from a variety of institutions throughout Central Asia. We also have a few people from other countries. So welcome everybody. And your institutions span the variety of experiences from, for example, one of Kazakhstan's most internationalized institutions to institutions in rural areas that are just now starting to internationalize beyond CIS country collaborations. So with that being said, I'm going to today try to help us focus our discussion, but also make it applicable to all of you and the different levels of experience that you are at. I encourage you to make comments or questions at any time in the chat box. I'll try to address them as we go. And we will have time for questions and answers at the end of the session. The session is also recorded, as Maksat said, and we will send it out to you, and we encourage you to share it with your colleagues. So today's goals are really fourfold. So first, we want to talk about the context, right? So why is internationalization important, and what do marketing and communications have to do with successful internationalization? And then next, I want to discuss the fundamentals of all of this. And this is really the meat of the presentation. These are the key best practices that you can take with you to move internationalization forward. So this will be the majority of the presentation. I don't have enough time today to focus as much as I would like to on all of the fundamentals, but you will definitely take away some key best practices that you have not thought of or implemented before. Third, we will talk about the importance of mindsetting, that internationalization and integrating it with marketing and communications is really about a cultural shift in your organization. It's all about your mindset. And finally, we'll talk about advancement, how to advance these initiatives in your institution. And this is where we'll also address COVID-19, the global pandemic, and the economic crisis that is present in the Central Asian countries right now. So with that being said, let's get started. So first we'll talk about context, right? So context is important for us to kind of get in the mindset. And even though many of you have a lot of experience in internationalization, it's nice to take a step back, and important to take a step back to, think about, what does internationalization, marketing and communications mean? And a lot of times people don't focus internationalization trainings specifically on marketing and communications, but they actually go hand in hand. Without successful and good marketing and communications, you will not be successful with internationalization. Sorry, seems to be some... Computer seems to be slow. Let's see if it catches up. All right, there we go. So let's take a step back and talk about what are marketing and communications, because they are different, right? But they are integrated together. So marketing involves the actual business planning and strategy development to promote a university and all of its products and services. So for us, that means our teaching and all of our research, as well as some of our other, kind of impact projects that we provide for the community. And in marketing, the client is the focus. So for universities, our main clients are our students. Our secondary clients are the communities that we impact. Okay, so that is what marketing is. It's really the macro vision, the strategy, and the plan. Now, communications is an umbrella under a part of the larger marketing umbrella. Communications is how the business plan and strategy are executed. So how your marketing plan and strategy are executed. And so within communications, we have all the different components of how we tell our story and the message, and that we share it with all stakeholders. So while marketing is specific to our main clients, the communications aspect considers all stakeholders. Now, internationalization is the process of integrating global, intercultural, international aspects into the purpose, functions, and or delivery of our institutions. So it's really bringing in this global mindset into our whole operations of our institutions. And in practice, internationalization, it involves both commercializing as well as global expansion components. And we do this through our research, our education practices, as well as our competition with one another in the field of higher education. And the outcomes of this are we generate revenue. So internationalization is often a way to generate more revenue. We secure national and regional profiles. So it's really a way to step up and become the best known higher quality higher education institutions. And in the case of Central Asia, I say regional because we not only compete with each other nationally, but we also compete with each other regionally. Also, internationalization helps us to build international reputation, right? And this is not only, this is worldwide. We are seeing the field of global education become more competitive, more accessible, and more integrated worldwide. It's not just, Eastern countries or emerging markets collaborating with Western markets. We see everybody collaborating with each other, and the dynamics of global education competition are changing for sure. And actually the research and statistics show that Asia is the up and coming powerhouse when it comes to global education. Most of that is focused on China, South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, Singapore, but Central Asia can take a place on the map if we internationalize well. So also in practice, internationalization involves developing the local and global workforce and communities. So we have a direct impact. And as an American right now, with everything going on in the US with our racial issues, I say that from firsthand experience, that we have an imperative to impact our communities both locally and globally. Finally, we help to, through internationalization, we help to build capacity throughout the institution, not just through the global office, but the entire institution. And we help to expand academic research and practice capabilities and resources. So through internationalization, it brings more capabilities and resources to the entire university. Now, components, most of us have a very traditional kind of mindset when it comes to the components or actions of internationalization. We often think, okay, this involves recruitment of international students, education abroad, and maybe some global partnerships. But actually, it's much broader and there's a lot you can do. So it involves the recruitment and support, not just recruiting, but supporting them in their experience at the university. International students, as well as international scholars, which are our researchers, our international faculty, our international staff, and our international administrators. So it's really holistic. We recruit and support all internationals. Also, internationalization involves students, staff, and scholars abroad from our own institution. So not just education abroad for students, but expand that to include your staff, your faculty, your scholars, right? And it's no longer just study abroad. It also includes internships abroad, research abroad, service learning abroad. There are many ways that universities can help people go abroad. Internationalization also includes global engagement of the university community and student life itself. So this includes housing, student organizations, student activities, everything under the engagement and student life umbrella. Also, internationalization of the curriculum, looking and analyzing what are we teaching our students? Are we preparing them for the global workforce? Are we meeting the UN Sustainable Development Goals through our curriculum? Are our teachers prepared and teaching with the global mindset? Also, research and education partnerships between institutions, both regionally and internationally. And in the case of Central Asia, I say regionally because Central Asian partnerships are important. You all are helping to build the entire region through not only competition with each other, but collaboration. And finally, national, regional, and global development network, again, through these networks, you're actually developing the community, right? So local communities in your cities, your countries, and Central Asia and beyond. And finally, development of international branch campuses and joint ventures. This is a very new area for Central Asia, but indeed an area of opportunity to expand, both in your institutions developing these type of initiatives in other countries, as well as developing them with other institutions abroad coming into your country or with your institution. So that's to say, great marketing and communications equals successful internationalization. You cannot have one without the other. And next, let's talk about what does this involve to have great marketing and communications. This is where I really hope you take notes. Again, we will send this recording out, but take notes and make this an active experience where you're thinking about and reflecting on your own institution. So while I talk about the fundamentals, we'll break it down into 3 categories. The basics, which are the basic kind of marketing and communications tools and approach you need to have. Second are the technological needs, which are extremely important, and as I see in my experience, a deficiency in Central Asian institutions. And finally, most importantly, we cannot do this without humans, right? So we'll talk about the human resources. If we had more time today, I would add a 4th component, which would be financial fundamentals, which is equally as important, and I know a concern of Central Asian institutions. So hopefully we can have another discussion, another webinar at another time about finances. But for the purposes of today, let's talk about the basics. Sorry, okay. So first and foremost is to define and know your audience. That's very critical. And in this, first and foremost is stakeholder mapping. So if you've never done this activity, it's very simple, and we'll talk about how to do it right now. So stakeholder mapping is a way to really define and know your audience and to think about what their needs, wants, and expectations are. Right? You can do this on your own. You don't even need to involve your team. If you're a 1-person international office, you can involve multiple people. You just take an hour to do this activity. And this can be the beginning of market research, which is really where you do more in-depth research on your stakeholders, especially the students and the larger community that you serve. Okay, so sorry for the slide issues. I don't know, my computer keeps skipping slides. So when you think about your audience, you want to ask 2 questions whenever you're thinking about them and making marketing and communications decisions. You want to ask, what are their wants, needs, and expectations? And also, how will they perceive this marketing and communications piece and our brand as a whole? Right? So take, for example, how will this potential partner see, if they look us up on the web and they see our website, social media, a Google search, anything about us, what will they perceive about us? And if we send them this brochure, or we give them this presentation, or we have this meeting, how will they perceive us? Right? And what are their wants, needs, and expectations? So you need to do that for all stakeholders. It's very important. We think about stakeholders in 2 ways, so internal and external. So when we talk about internal, we can put them into 4 categories. The first category being governors and funders. So these are entities like your board of directors, the owners, the funders, the government giving you money, the donors, etc. So these are really macro level internal stakeholders. Next are your administrators. So these are the rectors, vice rectors, the heads, the deans, etc., the larger decision makers within your institution. And then we go to staff. So staff include all administrators as well as all other employees without faculty responsibilities. We know that many staff members do have faculty responsibilities, so sometimes they're in both categories. And then lastly, we have faculty, which include our deans, as well as, of course, our professors, our lecturers, our researchers. And these are the people that are internal because they can directly help influence internationalization. So you want to think about them in that way. Next, we have external stakeholders, right? So you want to think about this in two different ways, internal stakeholders and external. So for your internal stakeholders, again, we can put them into 4 different categories. We have our students and alumni, right? Which is what most of us think of. But we need to think of them as we have local and international students and alumni. We also have people at different stages of their experience, prospective students, new students, continuing and senior students, as well as those who have graduated, right? And we need to think about our alumni as part of our community. In the US, alumni have a huge role to play in higher education. We see ourselves connected to our universities for life. We receive benefits for life from our universities, and we give back to our universities and generations of students. And international students are actually a big part of that and a growing part of that. So that's important for you all to start doing as well, is to build your community through your alumni networks, both locally and internationally. Then we think about universities. Again, we need to think about universities locally and globally, also as competitors as well as collaborators, right? So who are our competitors and how do we compete, but also who are collaborators or potential collaborators. We have to also should think of them as prospective, new, continuing, as well as renewing partnerships. So look at your old partnerships. I know with Central Asian universities, one issue is that when you have new administrators, a lot of initiatives just fall apart. So if you can find the historical information about previous partnerships, you may be able to renew partners. Now we go to agencies and industries. So under this category, we have governments, different funding agencies like American councils to government, etc. We have international education agencies. The business community is under this, as well as rankings and accreditation agencies. This is very important and one area that many institutions in Central Asia don't focus on very much. And then finally, research bodies. And then let's go last to press and media. So we look at this also like in a local to global lens. We also want to think about, you know, what kind of formal and government media and press is out there, and also think about student press is equally as important. Students are taking a larger role in media that is out there about higher education institutions. So again, when you think about your stakeholders, you want to ask these 2 questions. What are their wants, needs, and expectations? And how will they perceive this marketing or communication piece and our brand overall? That's the first part of the marketing and communications planning. Next, you want to think about your language platforms, okay? And this is extremely important in Central Asia because you guys are such a multilingual area. And so you want to think about how to best use all this amazing multilingualism that you have to your benefit. And as we know, we have local languages, we have English, and we have Russian in Central Asia. So it's important to continue to use your local languages with internationalization, not only to preserve your cultural heritage, but also local language can be used in education, international education initiatives. It can bring more opportunity. In the US and other places, there is a focus on what we call critical languages, and those are languages like Uzbek, Kazakh, etc., which are more rare in the world, but governments and others still want their citizens to learn those languages. And so there's an opportunity for you if you preserve these languages within your institutions to actually bring in more partnerships. And also, it's important to be able to communicate with your local audiences. If you want to promote education abroad, you'll need to be able to communicate these messages in your local languages to families, parents, students, right? Especially people in regions and rural areas. So it's important to continue to use your local languages. Also Russian, right? Russian is the regional language of historic communication. It's also how you communicate in all of the CIS. So Russian needs to be used. And as we know, English is now the global language of communication. And this is what we all know is really the weak point of institutions in Central Asia, is integrating English into your marketing and communications. So I really highly encourage you all to strategize for your next year how you're going to increase your capabilities when it comes to English communication, right? What kind of funding will you apply for to get more, for example, trainers to come to provide training in English proficiency for your staff? For example, do you need to hire more faculty and staff that have English proficiency skills? Do you need to have a professional translating department, etc.? That is really important, because if you want to partner with, for example, Latin America or Pacific Islanders or any place in the world where English is not the main platform, their international offices most always speak English, just like you do, right? So at least having some base for English to start and then strategizing for expanding is very critical for marketing and communications with internationalization. So now let's talk about the third component of the basic fundamentals. So those are your marketing and communications platforms. We can think about the platforms both physical and digital. So let's talk about physical first. So physical platforms, these are your meetings that you go to with international stakeholders. These are conferences, recruitment fairs, any site visits you have where people come to visit you from overseas or you visit people in other countries, as well as any mailings or handouts that you have. So with these platforms, you need to make sure the actual collateral pieces are lightweight, right? So it costs a lot of money to ship materials to conferences overseas or recruitment fairs in your own luggage, right? So they need to be lightweight. They also shouldn't be very huge, like traditional view books of universities of the past. They used to have these huge view books. They can no longer be that way. People are digital minded. They want information quick and they want it to be attractive. So your marketing pieces should have the most fundamental information on them available quickly, so they can take 30 seconds to a minute and get a summary about your entire institution and the international operations. They also should be very attractive. And this is where your marketing, communications, graphics departments come into play. So they can create nice brand. Your institution should have a brand and should have brand guides for everybody to understand the look and vision and feel of your institution, right? Again, they should be concise. They shouldn't have a lot of wording. They should be very visual. They also need to be correct. So not only correct in the language, right? It should be, if you're using English, which you should for all global materials, one version should at least be in English. You need to have correct English. That's very important to separate yourselves when it comes to competitors. The better the English, the more prepared your institution seems for internationalization. Also, you need to have correct, grammar, punctuation, spelling. In addition, correct graphics. So the graphics need to look good, have a nice layout, and overall, no errors on your materials. They also should be audience specific, right? So thinking about your different stakeholders, and we'll get into some specific examples next. And finally, again, they need to have a clear brand. So if you're looking at 3 different materials, they all need to have your institution's brand and show that clearly. A lot of institutions, they don't have integrated marketing and communications. They have different departments making different brochures and whatnot, and it looks unprofessional to international audiences. So next, let's talk about digital platforms. So this is when the information comes to your stakeholders digitally. So of course, we have our desktop and laptop. So we need to consider how things look on a desktop or laptop. Also, we have our mobile phones. And if you may not know, mobile phones is the #1 way people access information now. It's no longer by laptop and desktop. So you always need to think about, how does my website, how does this brochure, how does this form, what is it like on my phone? Does it look correct? Then we need to also think about television, but mainly for our local audiences, right? So television is becoming more and more a thing of the past, but you do need to consider that, especially in Central Asia, for local audiences when it comes to promoting your institution and its global operations. There are other types of digital platforms out there, but these are the main ones I want to focus on, especially desktop, laptop, and mobile phone. Again, the same principles apply as the physical platforms, but in addition, a digital platform should be accessible. So you want to think about, okay, if we're going to invest in a website that is higher quality, what is the bandwidth that is needed to access that website? If you have videos playing when you open the website, for example, that may not be accessible to someone in some Southeast Asian communities, or even in rural communities in your own countries, for example. So you want to think about, is our content accessible to everybody? Because you could be leaving out potential international students, for example, by not making it accessible. Okay. Now let's think about collateral, marketing communications collateral. So these are the actual tangible items that we use in internationalization. And these first ones can be thought of, can be used both physically and digitally. So first I want to start with business cards. So business cards are essential. And right now, in most Central Asian countries, most of them are in Russian. For internationalization purposes, one side of the business card should definitely be in English. And I know it's a bit of a moral dilemma. Should the other side be in Russian or our local language? That's something you have to decide. Maybe you just get 2 sets of cards, right? One with English and a local language, another with English and Russian. It's really a decision you have to make. But for internationalization, at least one side of the card should be in English. Another consideration is who should have these business cards that are multilingual, right? So if you're just starting to internationalize in your institution, your key international office, as well as your key players who interact with international stakeholders, they should have multilingual cards. For the rest of your institution, at one point, everybody should have multilingual cards. If you're not there yet, it's something to work towards, right? Then we think about global brochures. So this is your one piece, just open and close, that shows very quickly what your institution is about to global audiences. You can think about this in 3 main categories. One is your global partners. So these are all the people that you want to sell your institution to for potential partnership opportunities, right? Your donors, grant funding, potential universities overseas, etc. Then you want to have a piece for international student, mainly international student recruitment, right? So these are students and scholars from other countries. And then your third piece you can have is for your local audiences. to encourage them to study abroad, right? Study, research, intern abroad. Most entities have at least one global brochure. I say at minimum, you should have one for your global partners and international student audiences. If you can create something for international education opportunities at your institution, you're really above everyone else and really promoting higher internationalization. Next would be something that I have not seen yet in any Central Asian universities, but we are finishing a piece actually at Narcos University, which is a geographical pamphlet or brochure. So the concept is most of the world doesn't know anything about Central Asia, actually, especially the West. There's very little known about Central Asia. In the Americas, when you say STAN, a lot of people associate Central Asia with Afghanistan and Pakistan, which means in their minds violence or security issues, things like that. So it's important for Central Asian countries to help inform the outside world about how amazing Central Asia is. And me having worked here for a year and having worked, with partners and students from almost every country worldwide, Central Asia has a lot going for it, right? Multilingual, fairly secure in most places, multi-ethnic, multi-religious, amazing geography, so much history and culture. You have the nomadic influence, the European influence, Russian influence, and now this global influence. So, I mean, I could go on and on about all the reasons I think everybody should partner with Central Asia, but really it's your duty to help people understand, right? So having geographical information about your country and your city is essential. And then finally are your annual reports. So a lot of times, many universities in Central Asia think of annual reports as something only internal. But in much of the world, especially the West, annual reports are actually very external and something we put on our websites and have available to our partners. So I encourage you all to do the same. You can have your institutional annual report, and it should integrate international themes throughout it. I also encourage your international offices to have global annual reports as well that highlight all of the international operations of your institution that year. And then finally is the logo, right? Your logo should have a great, or your university should have a great logo, but you should also have a global logo. And at Narcos University, we have actually done that. So this is Narcos University's new global logo. We started using it this year. As you can see on the bottom, the Narcos Global is for kind of like the internal image of the university for people who already know about our global brand. And then the logo on top is for everybody external who may not know about Narcos University yet, right? So I encourage you to do something similar. Have your graphics department work with you to create a logo. Our graphics guru, he created this in like 20 minutes, right? So you can do the same. And for brochures, I wanted to show you our example at Narcos University. So this is our global brochure. It's literally one page, open and close, right? So you have your front cover, your back cover, and on the inside, we have minimal wording. We have to-the-point graphics, numbers, figures, and it's attractive, and it's available for international audiences of all types. You know, people who want to do research, people who want to fund us, universities who want to build double degrees. So this is our one global brochure. So these are just two examples that you can do. This global brochure took us a few months of focused, collaborative work between all the units at the university, as well as our marketing communications department, to put this together. So I encourage you guys to do this, to put yourselves really on the international stage. All right, so the last component of the basics of your fundamentals are the collateral pieces, right? So these are the actual tangible pieces that you use. And again, let's talk about now, we talked about physical, let's talk about digital. So with digital, we have two types. We have internal digital and we have external. So external means all the things that outside people are going to see about your institution, and it's less one-on-one, right? So first and foremost is your website, right? So with your website, you need to internationalize your website by not only having a dedicated global page or pages for everything global at your institution, but you need to work with the other parts of the website to integrate international themes, right? That's from admissions, the different schools and their global projects, your alumni section, your giving and donation section, definitely the about section. Internationalization should be in your vision, mission, objectives of your university, and also your research for your institution. Okay, so we want to do this for our university-wide website as well as our global section. Next, let's go down to social media and applications. So social media is so important because most people don't go to your website first. First, they find out about you through social media, and this is for almost all stakeholders. So if you have less than professional social media, or you're not paying attention to it very much, that should be your one of your number one strategies right now. YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook are where you want to be right now internationally. And I say this, and we can look at the next slide. So this is a world map of social networks in January 2020. So Facebook is the number one platform used in the almost the entire world, right? VK, Telegram, all of those are very CIS specific. Okay, so for internationalization purposes, you want to put Facebook at the top of your priorities. After that, I would definitely say Instagram. Instagram is where all the students are, right? Instagrams, especially outside of the US, a lot of students, both international students and your local students, are on Instagram for international education purposes. LinkedIn is where you want to be for global partnerships, global networking. This is the international platform for professionals. And so you should create your own university page and also start to connect with all of your international contacts on there. It's very essential. Finally, your institution, if it doesn't already have a YouTube page, it should create one, and it should have a playlist specific for global. This can be all of your global kind of videos, conference, webinar recordings, things like that, or you can divide it. You can do those kind of recordings plus videos made specifically for international students. It's up to you and your strategy, but you need to have a YouTube page and have it be globally focused. Next are external websites. Do a Google search of yourself. Do this Google search in different languages, English, Russian, your local language. The search results will astound you. You will see issues right away and things you need to work on. And you can use a technique called search engine optimization, SEO. So you can actually help design what people see about your institution online through search engine optimization. That's a whole nother workshop, but it's something I encourage you to learn more about online. Very quick to learn about some ways that you can make your institution's information be more accurate, and you can design what people are seeing. Also, I encourage you to create a Wikipedia page about your institution if you don't already have one. The best higher education institutions in any country have Wikipedia pages. You probably have most of the information you need already on your website. So create a Wikipedia page. This is the #1 source for credible information worldwide that can be backed up by people. Also, think about rankings websites and research databases. So the two most important for internationalization in higher education are QS, so QS rankings, and THE, Times Higher Education. Okay, so those are the most important international rankings websites used worldwide for higher education. You want to be on them, or you want to work towards being on them and having higher rankings. Also, research databases, there are many worldwide. You want to start to be on those databases, and that's going to require helping your research centers, your researchers, to translate their research into English, because 60+% of research worldwide is in English. So if you don't make it in English, then your institution will essentially not advance in that arena. And then finally, we have display ads and other type of digital external facing collateral. Most of you are not at this phase. This is for institutions that have a much larger budget. This involves things like putting ads on websites, like showing up on a YouTube panel or a specific website in your country. Airplanes, for example. I see Nazarbayev University ads show up all the time on Air Astana flights. Also public transportation, the buses, the metro, different types of flyers you see around. So multiple collateral options available. So again, we talked about the social networks, something very important for you to think about. If you're focused on VK, Telegram, etc., you need to think more globally, okay? Now let's talk about the digital and the internal facing, more personalized marketing communications collateral. So this is, again, includes 4 components. One being your email or communications journeys. So it's very important to be specific and intentional about your emails. Most universities in emerging economies and developing economies like Central Asia are not intentional about their emails. They're a little bit haphazard. And so what you can do, what I really encourage you to do as we move into the summer, is to create what we call email or communication journeys. You map out your entire academic year of communication for each stakeholder. Right? You think about, okay, what are my goals for internationalization this year? What are our stakeholders and what do we need to communicate to them? And you want to try to communicate every few weeks to every quarter with all of your stakeholders. And you can do this ahead of time, and it actually forces you to have better time management and better planning for your whole year, right? Which, as we know, is a challenge in Central Asia. Right? Culturally, we rush to get things done quickly, and we don't have enough planning and time management. So be proactive, because it will help you work better with international partners, right? So email journeys. Again, these, like everything else, they need to be audience specific, attractive. They should be informative but brief. Right? Each email doesn't need to have a lot of information, and they should be able to take action based on the content. Next are newsletters, digital newsletters. So this can be one of the items in your larger email communication plan for the year. Newsletters have more information in them. They're more of a review of what you've been doing and what you're going to do. They need to be audience specific, attractive, and purposeful, right? And newsletters, I recommend sending every quarter. If you have too many emails and newsletters, people will stop reading your content. And if you send it less than that, they'll stop being engaged and forget about you. So every quarter is a pretty good time to send newsletters. Next is your CRM system. If you don't know what this is, you need to know. It stands for Customer Relations Management. So this is both the process as well as the actual system, the actual database for integrating all of your stakeholders. And most people think about this database as just for student records. No, 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 no. CRM, a real holistic CRM, includes all of your stakeholders. It's where you keep all data about alumni. It's where all your data about your partners is, all of your funders, all of your business partners, international institutions, all in one database integrated, right? Most Central Asian universities are not using this type of integrated database, mainly because most don't have the funding, right? Salesforce, Oracle, those are the two like very experienced in higher education database platforms that you can look into. There are many others that are not as expensive. It is a big job to what we call migrate all of your data from one platform to another. But I would think about, you know, for the next 5 years, can you get a better CRM system that starts to integrate all of your components into one? And this is also through your CRM. This is where you can send your communications out, and it can connect the emails that you send can be connected to each person. So if you want to see, you know, an international student, what they've been communicated, you can click on that student's name and it'll show you all the emails that have been sent to them and who sent it and what date, right? You can do the same. I want to see what we've emailed our business partner, right? You can click on that business partner's name or foreign institution and see everything that's been sent through the system to them. So CRMs are really important as you move internationalization forward. It's a long-term investment and something you should start strategizing for now. And finally, the last collateral component for your internal facing personalized digital components are informal communications. And this is something we don't often think of as a part of communications and marketing, but it is important. So that includes things like one-on-one emails that you have with people, your text messages you have back and forth. A lot of people use WhatsApp. It also includes your LinkedIn messages. So if you're messaging people on LinkedIn, you want to make sure your messages are still professional. Of course, they're going to be a little bit more informal when they're one-on-one. They still need to be professional as well as branded. Okay, so think about that. And if you're using WhatsApp for your personal purposes, I recommend you create a WhatsApp for Business account to include external. Okay, let's see. So we'll go on to the next slide. And thank you, Maksat, for your message here. So those are the basics, those are the fundamentals. And again, that's the main part of this presentation that I really wanted you to start thinking about all of this, right? So we have our stakeholders and our audience. We have the languages that we need to consider having our materials in. We have our specific collateral as well as the platforms. So as you see here from this image on the side, it's all integrated. And so you need to think of these components all together. Now let's talk briefly about technological needs. As I mentioned at the beginning, I'm going to kind of fly through this section because this is a huge topic we're talking about today and we just don't have enough time. But tech needs are extremely important. So obviously you need a website, right? But you need to make sure you have a designated website designer in-house. That's very important. And you need to make sure that your website capabilities have enough capabilities to do international functions. I also recommend that you have videographers, at least one. You can do things like have a media lab, for example, where you have videographers, graphic designers, etc. And finally, you need to be able to have online meetings and live streaming, which the pandemic has forced us to do this. So that's very important, okay? All right, so next are human resources. So with the human resources, we need to think about this is we need to have key specific people in each department that we're going to work with, as well as international office, staff and faculty, and think about training and development and processes and policies. So within the international office, a lot of you are, you know, are a one-person show, right? You have one officer. But to really expand internationalization, you need to think about having all of these different staff members in your office. I won't go through them just because of time right now, but again, think about this, like, what do we need to do to strategize to expand our HR needs within our international office? In addition, very importantly, is you need to start having key people in every office that both speak English, at least one person that has proficiency in English, as well as can be your key contact for all global matters. And you can see a list here of key institutions that you need to be, or key departments that you need to be working with for all internationalization matters, okay? Also, processes and policies, very important. This is a big barrier right now for internationalization and marketing and communications at higher education institutions. So develop and ensure that these processes and procedures support successful internationalization. I encourage you to do an audit this summer. I encourage you to start planning and create a development plan to do this. And then finally, you want to support training and development of your staff and faculty. You want to integrate and ensure that it's quality and effective and can help all stakeholders, right? International language, English proficiency is very important these days. And help your staff and faculty to understand global best practices in internationalization. There are a lot of online trainings right now, a lot of free trainings also. And I encourage you to also create a professional growth plan for your faculty and staff and a yearly plan, okay? All right, so that sums up the meat of this topic. I want to, quickly say that this is all a mindset to make this happen. It involves patience, perseverance, and what I call building the tribe. So this is a long-term process. You need to have patience and understand that all of your small steps are adding up, and to never give up. Every hurdle that you hit in this process means that change is happening. And finally, be intentional, collaborative, start to build your relationships internally and externally, and lead by example, and you will build your tribe, and you will move internationalization forward with great marketing and communications. Finally, to advance all of this forward, it really takes, a whole institutional look on moving things forward. So, that really involves integrating internationalization and marketing communications into your institution's strategies. Also making the financial case. You want to show how internationalization can bring more revenue and make your institution more secure. This is extremely important right now because of the economic crisis and the pandemic. So make the financial case. Also advocate and lead. So you want to advocate using global best practices, again, lead by example, and finally use design thinking to innovate and disrupt the status quo, right? You want to be in what we call blue oceans thinking. What are other institutions not doing that we can do? What is our competitive advantage? And start there and think about the people you serve at the core. Finally, and what you've all, really been anxious about these past few months is, how do we make opportunity out of this crisis? And I included this picture of a door because I want all of us to think about this pandemic as an opportunity. This is a time of global change. And so we need to grab onto the opportunities and build opportunities. And there are many right now. In higher education, I think the biggest challenge that we're seeing is a lot of uncertainty about enrollments in the fall, right? Enrollments for both local students and international students. We can make our institutions more secure by being more intentional about our marketing communications and our international brand, right? And even local audiences will invest in our institutions more if we have a good international brand. So first and foremost, put new marketing and better branding as a priority right now, not in a week, today, right? So it's time to think and act for new opportunities. Second, you can create a ton. You don't have to stop all of your international activities. You can create online forums, conferences. You can take this summer to have online meetings with your partners. All of that is free, right? You already have Zoom and other platforms to be able to do so. It takes very little money to invest in these. And there are many things that we've done at Knott Host University that open doors with partners internationally, with Google, Arizona State University, etc., that we never thought of before the pandemic, right? Third would be professional development and training. A lot of online professional development and training is available to you for free or cheap. I encourage you to ride this digital train that's happening right now because of the pandemic and use your online resources. And finally, make the move to COIL, which is Collaborative Online International Learning. This is where you partner with universities. It can be very informal. You don't even need an MOU, an agreement, and you can have interactions between students and classrooms and build from there. So use this time to build your institution's internationalization and really focus on marketing and branding to keep your institution strong. Okay. With that being said, I have some final resources here to wrap things up. So these are some great places that provide best practices for marketing and communications and internationalization. They also have a lot of networks. They have a lot of free resources, and they have access to funding opportunities. So of course, many of these are in the United States. The first two categories are in the United States. We also have Canadian agencies, Bolashak in Kazakhstan, Erasmus British Council in Europe, and the Asia Pacific Association for International Education. Very few Central Asian countries are part of that association. It's something I recommend that you join and start to get involved in. Okay, so right now, I know that we have reached time, so I'd like to open it up for any questions and discussion. I would also like to know from you all, after all this being said, what do you think are your top priorities now in your institution? What should be your top priorities right now for internationalization? And if you have any more recommendations to share with others for best practices, as well as any other organizations that can help in all of your efforts.
Yes, thank you very much, Katie, for your comprehensive overview of marketing and communication strategies and tools. We really appreciate your effort to share the information with all of us. And for everyone else, if you have any questions or recommendations or anything you want to add, please feel free to use the chat box and then or raise your hand and we will unmute you and turn the cameras on and you can speak up. We have about 5 minutes. And as it was mentioned, the resources, Katie pointed out that there are many resources. Just would like to remind that UNICEN is also a resource for all Central Asian universities. You can go to our website. We have listed all of them there. In addition, this webinar, recording of this webinar will be available there. You can watch it again with the presentation, as well as all the previous webinars we had, along with some additional materials on different topics on the internationalization of higher education.
Dear Mossad, a good day.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Anna, hi.
Okay. Yes, hi, good day. Dear Katie, thank you so much. It was really useful and needed information. And I think in conclusion of your presentation, just can you give some kind of key recommendations to successful internationalization? Because you know that it is very, how can I say, we are just starting this process and it's really interesting. As an expert I really would like to note key moments, if it is possible. Thank you so much. And I'm from ABBA University, so in this regard, it's very important for us to hear it from you.
And where's your university at? Please, what is your name again, and where's your university at?
Yes, my name is Anar Tanabayeva. I'm from ABBA University in Almaty, Kazakhstan.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Well, this is a great question. I'm glad you asked it because there's a lot of information here, right? And I just poured a lot of suggestions on you. I think first and foremost, most importantly, are your websites and social media. This is where you need to start because that is where any international audience stakeholder is going to go there first. So first, build your international presence on your website and social media. Start small with everything, right? Step by step. Don't overwhelm yourself too much. And building your website and social media is almost free, other than the staff that you're paying. So start there. I would say, like, especially this summer, work on that. Also, on your websites and social media, I encourage you guys to have messages about how your institution is planning for the fall and responding to the COVID crisis, because that's going to reassure students and funders and partners that you all are taking this seriously and that you have everything organized. So I think those should be the two most important things right away. Third, after that, I would say would be your global brochure. If you can create one, even if you can't, even if you don't have money to print it, you can create global materials that you can put online. So I would say start there, and definitely finally would be to meet with your administration to make a comprehensive plan. And you can even, depending on the politics of your organization, you can propose things and create your own plan and then propose it to the leaders of your institution to see if they can integrate it into the larger institutional strategy.
Thank you so much, Kati. It was really useful. Thank you, DM.
So glad, thank you. So I see a question here.
I want to, yes, my name is Farooq, and I'm head of International Department of Samarkand Architecture Civil Engineering Institute. And at the end, I want to say thanks for Kati and Maksat Kashgarbayev, but the time is so short. If I have some question, can I send you per email?
Sure. Yeah, you're welcome to send me an email. My email is, I'll type it here, right? And send me an email. I'll be glad to follow up with you. Also, we have a poll here. We'd like to know, because we know this topic is so important and there's so much information about it. So we'd like to know how helpful a series of workshops would be for you. We could offer them online to go more in depth into these topics, and then have a final in-person workshop somewhere in Central Asia to actually have an in-depth strategizing workshop on your internationalization, marketing, and communications. So please, if you can answer this poll, it will help us kind of plan for the future. And I have a question here also. It says, I work at Uzbekistan State University, Physical Education and Sports. Is there any possibilities for sport universities as well? Oh, definitely. There are many niche institutions worldwide. And so you need to find those niche, unique institutions in other countries. We have those institutions definitely in the US. Every country has like these kind of physical sports related institutions. So use the resource slide that I posted. You can find lists of those institutions through Google search, NAFSA, Association of International Educators. You can contact American councils. They may know some specific universities.
Mm-hmm. it's so useful for us, and the information, I think it's so good. But nowadays, we don't have any partner in American university.
Yes, so
but
this is
in the future.
Yeah, this is a need. So I see that Central Asian universities, they have a lot of experience with CIS countries, and in the last 10 years, they've been working with Europe, and America and other demographics are new. If you want to work with US institutions, you have to use these best practices that I mentioned and really show correct English, that you have a plan, that you have some type of presence, and show your international work that you're doing. They want to see experience, right? And also, in addition, start to make contacts. You can use LinkedIn. You can work with American councils and others to get introduced to specific institutions, right? So start little by little, bet-chut-chut, and then you can start to be introduced to different US institutions. And just like Central Asia, it's about who you know and building relationships. And trust is very important for US institutions, because in US institutions, we get many requests from all around the world, and we want sustainable partnerships. We want something that's going to last. So you need to build your partnerships with US little by little.
All right, we are running out of time. Again, Katie, thank you very much for joining us today, for sharing your experience. Everyone else, thank you for taking your time of the day and being with us and watching our live webinar. As I said, this session is recorded and we will post it on our website, as well as all of our previous webinars have already been posted there. You can find all information online. Or send us a question via email. We will be happy to answer. Thank you.
Спасибо большое. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. Goodbye, Katie, Maksat.
Have a great day.
Goodbye.